So, for the final panel of day one, we deep dive into the developer first security, secure SDLC practices, and agile workflows. In Secure by Design, we welcome Dhaval Srivastav, Ravi Rajput, Sanjeev Jaiswal, and handing over the session to our moderator, Donovan Chia.
Thank you very much for the introduction. I'm sure tea break was great for all of you. Right, so let's begin this with a very, very light moment, right? I'm sure you've seen the topic. I'm sure you know we are going to be talking about AppSec related topics, right? So maybe let's just go back to a very simple, application, right? No matter what application you use out there, right? Could be like Facebook, could be like your bank application, etc. What's the first page you see on an application? What's the first page? Login, right? Okay, but if you look at it from a design perspective, this login page has changed over the years, right? So if you look at login pages in the past, like maybe when you were in a time where there's this thing called PHP BB forums, not sure how many of you know what I'm talking about, but that tells you roughly which generation I grew up in. You will know that all you needed to do was to use a username and password, and then tada, you're in. After that, what happened? People realized, hey, I could, steal somebody's password, leave the username from somewhere, and then you realize that was insufficient security. And so what happened next? You had folks that needed to say, okay, we need another layer of authentication. We needed you to key in some sort of one-time password, and then there's like we need your mobile number, SMS, and things like that. So I think for today's panel, we are going to take a perspective that, in fact, when we talk about concepts such as secure by design, right? This term secure by design has been used so often, but actually, maybe let's ask our panel to kick off this discussion. What do you understand by the term secure by design?
Well, thanks, Donovan. I think that was a very varied question about logins, and I think I would like to ride on that wave of giving my perspective on what is secure by design. If we just continue with the example of login page, like Donovan mentioned, first we just had simple username and password. Then come the era of second factor. So second factor could be as simple as an OTP or some other secret, if I can say so, that needs to be entered, or followed by anything else. It could be number-driven alphanumeric. Then again, there was an era where we got the CAPTCHA. How many of you think CAPTCHA is meant for security purposes? Right, great. For those who doesn't think, may I ask, why do you think it is not meant for security purposes? Why system needs to know you are human?
In this concept of like preventive fun, like non-human kind of bot is given to prevent later was login threat. So I tell you what.
Yes.
Good business impact of can log in, right? And they can do some activity. But as a business owner, what do you think? A user is doing some activity and you read your metrics as back and I'm become a business owner. But a key that is a bot. So it can lead to a complete business investigations. But a business which are remotely data driven, where like posting and everything, that can be completely misleading. So that's the purpose of creating an CAPTCHA like works at CPAV. Let's be more realistic on the human factor.
Amazing. And thank you for sharing that perspective. Like business is important. Everything is driven by business. However, just to add to your perspective, how about maybe it would have started with the business need, but it eventually became a need of the security to ensure that no forced logins are happening even if your credentials are leaked? Maybe. Nothing is defined in the books. So secure by design is what you rightly said. If you talk about business, business comes on the very left of the chain, start of the chain. And this brings me to the point of shift left. What is shift left? Like wherever end user is on the topmost, the rightmost part of it. Now, as you move towards the left part, which comes from like your deployment, and then you go before testing, and then you go to like I'm going backwards, and then you go to development, then you go to planning, and then you go to business requirement. The moment you hit the security aspect towards the leftmost part of it, it starts the thought process of secure by design. Like when you're thinking to design something, you're also ensuring not just technical or business aspect of it, also the security part of it. Yep, that would be my thing. Thank you.
Ravi?
So for me, secure by design would be like implementing the security from architecture to design to development to deployment to till maintenance. Like traditionally, we used to think that the testing should be done after we finished our development, like waterfall cycle, right? So now we are changing that, right? So that is the reason. So if I state an example of automotive industry, right? If there is a bug in the real car which is on the road, right? Then revoking the car back to your OEM and fixing the bug, and then you have to send back the car to the customer. That requires a lot of that you have to burn a lot of money for that. So if you do secure by design in automotive industry or IoT industry, so this can save a lot of money, right, for the business part, as well as it is an efficient way to implement security from the start of the development or from the conceptual level to the deployment and the maintenance part.
Yep. I think majority of the points from the secure by design is already covered. But let's assume that you're building a house. How your house will be secured? What you will do? You will not put your window near to your door, right? So that someone can break the window and thief can just put out the latch, right? So thinking from that kind of mindset is required when you talk about secure by design. And as I'm most of my experience into the product security side, so the other automotive examples have been given by him. So I will say that the changing that mindset of everyone, whoever is involved in that kind of application development, if you can do that part, that is actually the real secure by design. Shift left or whatever you add in that one, right? So let's say like in past, security means only SOC and pen test. Do we agree that? Like 10 years back, it was like that. But now, and I'm not talking about GenAI, otherwise it will be a different topic. But how about the other parts, right? Now we know that what is DevSecOps. What about in 2015? Was there any DevSecOps? How much we were aware about CSPM or CNAP tool, right? Nothing, right? So when you say secure by design, it's not just about the application, but how this is being developed, where it is being deployed, and who is going to be the end user. So security from the beginning till that part is actually secure by design, what I understand from the application perspective. Yeah.
Yep. So I think there's some consistent themes here, right? One, shift left security. Two, of course, when we talk about secure by design, incorporate security into the development lifecycle right from the start. But now here, this raises also some interesting questions. And I think some of you will probably know there are various activities that we do as part of secure by design, like for example, threat modeling. And in short, threat modeling is basically asking some very simple sounding questions. I say simple sounding because the questions really go like this. What's the scope? What can possibly go wrong? How then do you set it right? And do you do a good enough job? In essence, that is actually called the threat modeling manifesto. It's 4 simple questions. But when we actually start digging into these questions, do we then realize that, oh my God, for many systems, this can be very complicated. And I'm sure Ravi will agree with me, right? For example, when we want to talk about scoping, for example, an automotive system and what can possibly go wrong in an automotive system, there are many, many, many things that can go wrong, right? And when we talk about things going wrong and while violating a secure by design kind of principle, and why this is so important is because we often like to say, oh, if we don't do secure by design, we're wasting money. We are perhaps, pushing everything to the back. The security folks don't have a say. But I think what's more important is that in some systems, we are actually quite concerned not just about data, but about human lives. Show of hands here, how many of you drive an electric vehicle or a smart car? Show of hands? Okay, sounds like 1, Are you personally concerned about your smart car? A bit. On a scale of 1 to 10?
You would not let us attach the campus to
I see your friend has exposed you. But I think my point here is that the reason why we talk about AppSec, why we talk about secure by design is because actually when we do our daily work from a cybersecurity perspective, we really understand, right? We do this to support business requirements. But able to make sure that, hey, for what business wants to do, we can do a good enough job to make sure that these systems have a level of security in the chain at the minimum. Okay, we know that we're never going to come up with the best security product because the best security product is one that you never turn on. Okay, now having said that, now let's move on to the next segment. A bit of a change in question, right? So we talk about secure by design, we talk about this, and we talk about various security activities that are involved, right? I think we talked about threat modeling, we talked a bit about dealing with the VAPT aspects, etc. And then we also talked about software development methodologies. Like for example, we talked about the difference between waterfall models versus DevSecOps. So maybe let's dive into what we look at as a secure software development lifecycle. And I think the SSDLC here is important to talk about because when we talk about security, we are not just looking at very point activities to perform, right? With respect to, say, an application's development lifecycle, but rather we are looking at it from, say, okay, no matter what methodology you use, how do we make sure, two questions here, right? How do we make sure, number one, we cover security from enough perspectives? Second question, how do we know we did a good enough job?
What all activities are to be done? I would say it's very subjective. If we go by the defined definitions or bookish way, there are n number of things that you need to do right from the start to ensure that you are going by the secure by design mindset. However, what I would suggest is, basis my business need, who will be my customers, what will be my environment where customers are connecting, where my product would be used, be it a IoT product or a software product. I would need to define my risk appetite. If I am able to define my risk appetite, I would then approach, okay, if I am able to take care of certain risk, now what all will be these risks? Now, when we say what all risk will be there, it comes to, okay, suppose if I want to design a pen, for example, now how can that pen will become a risk factor for anybody? For example, there is one pen in this room. If I ask an open question to everyone like, okay, how will you do? Yeah, I'm just quoting some Sanjeev's example we were discussing some time back. So secure by design is very simple. You need to design a pen. At the same time, you need to ensure that you are covering all the risk. So if I may ask an open question to the audience here, what do you think could be risk while designing a pen? And what else? What do you think? Like, there is just no defined terminologies here. Like whatever you think could be risk. If you say you have to design a pen securely. Okay, fair point.
breaking of the film ball.
Quality, yes. Please go ahead.
It may not be used as a weapon against someone.
True. Could be one possible risk because pen is available everywhere. It is allowed everywhere, even in the parliament. So yes. So why I ask this is, so the thought process that you folks got into just now on thinking what could be the possible risk while designing a pen. I think we apply secure by design thought process every day in our life in whatever we do. We when we travel via a vehicle, we gauge how much is the speed in front of, if there are bumps, if there are signals, when should we stop, how much speed should we do, how much steering should we steer. So same goes with whatever work we do in the industry. If we talk about software, then when you say, if you want to do secure by design, then that comes, okay, let's start designing our application. What will be the data flow? Because everything is about data nowadays. What you do, you work on data or you work for data. at the end of the day. Now, when you design something, you design, okay, what all systems will be needed, what will be the layers, how the system design should come into play, what all perimeter devices will be there, how my customer is going to interact with this interface, how many avenues are there for those interactions. So once you do the, say, initial design, then you say, okay, this is my standard architecture for that example. Now let me do threat modeling. We discuss about threat modeling. Now, threat modeling could be 1 hour task, or threat modeling could be a 1 month task for the same single data flow diagram. It all depends how much risk you are able to cover, how much risk you are able to identify. Now, same goes like in this way. The moment we do this at the very initial design phase, same goes and with the every other agile phase. Once you're done with the designing, which is where I think one prominent thing is threat modeling. Now, if I come the very last leg of it, DevSecOps or say deployment or CI/CD pipelines, one of the critical activities that I feel is part of secure by design is your dynamic assessments. DAST is what we say. So it all depends on what stage you are, how secure you're thinking, or let me say, what do you think is security at this point in time? If you can think of the risks, what Donovan was saying initially and what Ravi was saying as well. The moment we are able to gauge and identify risk as early as possible, we are able to reduce, one gentleman said about business risk, we are able to reduce the business risk that could come later on in the stage. Yeah, I'll give Ravi and Sanjeev opportunities to share their perspectives as well.
Before I let Ravi jump in, I wanted to point out something that Dhaval said. He mentioned the word data. But from an automotive perspective, Ravi, would you agree that it's purely about data that we need to take care of?
It is not only purely about data, but yeah, definitely. If you are driving a vehicle which is smart enough to connect your V2X and infrastructure, definitely your geolocation will matter. If the T-box, the telematics is not secure enough with the basement that is connected, then anyone can listen your calls in-car calls, right? So it is not about always not about data, but anyway, this all are critical data, right? But as Dhaval was stating, I want to say I want to add one more point here. We have to accept the risk as well, right? We have to minimize the margin of risk acceptance, right? So because when there is when we are talking about performance versus security, in automotive or hardware industry, performance is given the most priority, right? So that risk acceptance can be thought from the first conceptual phase, right? So yeah, these are my thoughts on this.
Yeah, I think the overall, because there is very less time, so I will try to cover when you are talking about designing the things, right? Be it like the DevSecOps pipeline or many things we are maybe missing, or everyone is thinking from the more security part, but we have to just think the PPT part, right? People, process, technology. We all talk about technology and we are talking about the process, in this pipeline, you should put this is the security barrier gate, right? And we will talk about the data, we'll talk about the business. But what if the people who are doing this, be it a developer, be it the security engineers, right? They are not aligned with that. What are the risks like that? For example, the Git leaks or the secret leaks happened, I think 3-4 years back, it was very famous. But can we say that after 4 years, the security engineers are not leaking that? Or even the developers has not leaked so far? If not, then maybe the secret scanner tool would not be that much famous now, right? So what my thing is whenever you are designing something, right, try to train and align those people who are involved in that business, right? You are doing a threat modeling. So threat modeling is not for the developer, is not for just for the security architects, right? It is for security engineers, and it should be an input point to the different people. It is the input point for pen tester, because now you know that these are the threats or these are the security controls they are saying that it has. Can you validate it, right? Or what are the mitigation steps I'm giving them, right? So these kind of things will help pen tester. So the same way it will help the business people or the product owners, right, to design. So let's say how many of you know that Capital One, there was some breach in 2019, right? That was just because of one security misconfiguration in S3 bucket, right? So what if that could have been, validated and verified in the threat modeling phase itself? It could have saved, I think, millions of dollars, right? So solving anything, once you figure it out, like, and it is like in a production phase, right? And then you are fixing something, the budget cost, as you were, many of the people will be agreeing that budget is a main concern, right? But can we say that that time we are able to pay the money, right? Uber launched directly, like, there are 10 security engineers they need once there was a data breach. And before that, there was no security engineer post from the Uber, like in last 5 years back, right? So when it is needed, then only you are using it. Can we change that mindset? I think that is where I will say, like, the overall secure design will work and will be successful if this is the mindset from the the application perspective, from the software industry perspective.
Yeah, so I think from here you can see a diversity of perspectives. I thought I would bring in my own, since we talked about performing threat modeling. We talked about basically getting the business involved. I would like to get the audience to participate in a very simple exercise. Okay, very simple exercise. So remember, right at the start of this session, we talked about the login page. Then we talked about 2FA, right? We talked about basically coming up with a CAPTCHA, or not CAPTCHA, sorry. We talked about coming up with OTP through SMS or maybe through some authenticator app, right? How many of you here know what a YubiKey is? Show of hands. So few people? Okay, but let's just say hardware token, okay? How many of you think a hardware token is generally good practice for a login page as a second factor of authentication? Show of hands. Not. Okay. Yes. Yes. It's not. Why is it not? Okay, let me explain to you why the question that I asked you is a very loaded question. Because it is loaded and actually you cannot answer the question. I'll tell you why. So suppose in some applications you say, okay, login is very sensitive because we need to make sure that you don't want the wrong guy to access your account, like for example, a bank account, right? So, okay, we want to make sure you have 2FA, you must make sure the second factor authentication is very strong. And maybe we will provide hardware token support. Now, there's at least one example I can think of where this is a horrible idea. Really, really bad idea. Okay? So, I used to come from the defense sector. And in the defense sector, we have lots of operational equipment. When we mean operational equipment, we mean equipment that in times of war, if you have to use it, you must be able to make sure it gets used. So one such example was a missile system. Now imagine, okay, and you say, okay, we want to make sure only the right guy fires the missile, so we must make sure we have 2FA on that system. And then, okay, we want it to be secure and we will make sure you have a hardware token. And then someone pointed out this very simple risk, right? What if this guy got killed? The hardware token is gone, right? And you notice this example extends to other sectors as well. So, for example, operational technology, you go to oil and gas plant. That guy dropped his hardware token into the sea, so he can't access the system anymore. So that's why I say it was a loaded question, because when you look at systems, when we talk about threat model or systems, I totally agree with Sanjeev that you must involve the business because you need to understand the business use case. And hence, when we talk about threat modeling, it is a practice that cannot involve simply the security team. Actually, what we are really trying to say is that we need to embed, okay? And that's why I need to justify the name of the title. The idea of thinking about security, okay, throughout the business, meaning to say, we get the business involved, we get them buy-in, but we need them to understand that the security teams have a certain perspective and it's up to them to be able to challenge us and have a healthy discussion over what can reasonably be implemented in a system versus what cannot. Because if you go to the banks, they will tell you, no, you need a hardware token for their bank internal employees because we're dealing with lots and lots and lots of money. Whereas for an oil and gas plant, sure, it is critical, but if someone drops the token, that's it, game over. Right? I don't know how to recover that. So now with that, I thought it would be a good idea to move into some related adjacent domain. And all along, we talked about basically this very simple process of authentication. We talked about secure by design. And ultimately, when we design secure systems, it's really because we want to design systems that people can trust. Okay, I know this is related to my own company's slogan, but that aside, I thought I wanted to move the discussion into trust. And why trust is important is because I think everyone probably expects us to say this, but at some point AI is involved as part of the software development process. Show of hands, how many of you know somebody who has used ChatGPT in the last week to generate some code? I guess the audience has spoken, right?
The one who's not using it live.
Generated some code, okay? And of all that code that has been generated, because so many of you raised your hands, I'm sure some of it must have been committed somewhere in some Git repo, right? Now, here's the question. Once again, I ask very simple questions. Though the one always says my questions are not simple. 2 questions. First, will you trust that code? 2, if you cannot trust that code, how do you deal with it from an app side perspective?
When you are talking about like the developers are actually writing the code, and it's like there are lots of policies that people have to define after that. That they, after knowing that, okay, this code is actually written by ChatGPT or Cursor AI or Code Whisperer, anything people are using, right? And then you came to know that someone in your engineering team has written the code which had a bug, and to fix that again you are using some another tool, right? And it is becoming very complex. So I think it was given by Stanford that the OpenAI, whatever the code it is being generated by OpenAI, 40% of them had directly at least one vulnerability in your code. So you are introducing this kind of risks in your code if you agreeing that, right? So that's why you are having whatever GenAI policy frameworks, and then you do the scan from the AI part, right? And the other term that will come under is a responsible AI. That I'm trusting, you're trusting the code, I'm trusting that person who is writing the code or committing that code, right? So it is not easy part, and I don't think like it has been solved yet, right? Still the companies are trying to see key, we have to enable our developer to write such kind of code. We cannot say like, please don't use the OpenAI or ChatGPT generated code, because that's how you will be faster as well, right? Imagine earlier the deployment was taking, let's say, a week. Now it's just an hour, right? Even Exbo is doing the pen testing within 48 minutes, which was being done by 40 hours, right? By someone senior as like 10 years of pen tester, right? So you can do that, and let's do that, but let's have the bar gate challenges. What you have like SonarQube for your code smell and the other things. So the same way, I think that is an opportunity for lots of AI tools to come is like a trust advisor for your code, right? So that is my view. Like you should allow them, but with the restrictions, and again show them the real use cases, right? This can happen, this cannot happen. So this risk you are bearing, this risk the company is bearing, and these are the tools you can use with so and so features, right? Some of the things they may enable, some of the things company has to enable or disable, right? So it is basically a shared responsibility. We cannot just say that somebody is using and somebody should not use because I don't trust, right? Yeah, that's my point.
I have a question. Is there a chance that that the AI code, whatever it generates, that it introduces some backdoors in the code? Is that again?
So that's where the risk that is coming. So you will scan this code as well, but the scanning will be different, right? But still the business logic flaws is same, and that's where I think AI cannot replace this kind of people who will do that business logic flaw. At least now, maybe at least for the next 3-4 years. So whatever you are saying, right? Someone has to be in that area also expert to figure out that this kind of code has been generated and being implemented, right?
I have a question. So like, you're talking about secure by design. Why is that you're not able to train our servers in a better way?
So that's why I say people process technology. I'm giving you the recent example. Let's say secure championship program will be there in almost most of the companies, right? So they are training their developers what is secure coding, how can you write the secure code, and this is the plugin that you have to use in your IDE, and see this can easily figure out the moment you installed it, the moment you are going to commit, before that it is telling that this code has so and so vulnerabilities. Now I'm asking a question to you. How do you think, like, how many people have actually installed that particular plugin in their IDE? Even it's a 2-minute job. Okay. Now, okay, it's to all, right? How many? What do you think? Like, how many people might have actually installed that plugin right away.
10%.
10%. So he's very close. What is?
It's enforcement is very
Only it is enforced, and it is not. See, anything which is enforced by security team is taken as a blocker. You are a villain, right? So
If I are skeptical that even if it's enforced by the security team, they will install it until the audit team comes after the
exactly. So it is like I'm wearing the helmet just to bypass this police or fuel thing, right? So it's like that. Enforcement by security is not the solution. So that's the anyone else 10%. He said almost correct. Hardly 10%. Installation. Imagine the adoption rate. Cultural problem, right? So that's why I'm telling this will be not successful unless and until you think from the people perspective. And you that's the reason influential skill is coming as your skill set for this kind of roles. That can you influence the developer, right? So this is how it is coming.
Sanjeev, let me play devil's advocate here. So, even if I have an interesting perspective, from my perspective, it's very practical challenge. Even if we train our developers, I think unless they are given the luxury of time, they'll not be able to. First, they have to code. Second, they have to code within the timelines that is given to them, not what they want. Third, we want them to code securely as well. So I think even if I am a developer, I know how to do secure coding. But if I'm given 2 hours to do something, it will be just stopgap arrangement coding for me. Maybe I'll use ChatGPT and just do the fix, and I'll see. This is the best I could do in 2 hours, even if I know how to do secure coding. So it needs to be top-down approach. Huh?
Management wants you to use ChatGPT.
Without time. True.
Another question, like developers are technical enough to understand the challenges. They are understand the security perspective also. But when we talk about the shift left or secure by design, right? Basically, first thing comes with a requirement document or a product requirement.
Correct.
And those people are not technical enough. Those people are not that skill set.
Sorry. Clarification. When you say that people, can you specify who these people are? Product managers. Okay, how about the business people? Because there's the product managers, but they're also the people who drive the product managers to build something. So how about business people? And the champion behind the business idea. Yeah. So we have to be careful, right? That's called blame by obscurity, But it's not bad, so let's continue, right? Mm-hmm.
Those people are hardly have the skill set of understanding the security, how that works. So the time that product requirement goes to engineering managers, then the developers, they start building the POC stage environment, dev environment, and post that come to the InfoSec assessment. This process, this is the problem I see. Like still we are not able to graduate that product requirement itself. Can they come InfoSec team before? Okay, what can be potential risk in this design or in this requirement altogether? That I'm still saying the industry is missing. That product team is not coming to a security team asking a valid question like, can it be useful or can some features can be tuned based on the security? So why so? Product team.
No, I think amazing practical challenge that you have bring in. Let's say this is the North Star where we want everybody to be so secure aware, no matter the role or the function. But till we reach that point, one challenge that I see why we are not able to do is because we are unable to think to include right people at the right time. I'm a product manager. My intent is to gather the business requirement and give how this particular requirement should take shape. Now, I'm not a security expert. I'm not expected to be. Now, but one important part here is when I give this requirement, I need to include right stakeholders from security. I should, which is not happening now, that okay, once I'm giving this requirement to development team, they involve software architects. And I think one important gap here is while we involve software architects, we should involve security architects. The moment they work very cohesively, the secure by design will take fly very easily through the life cycle. But to your question, why it is not happening, I think same challenge, mindset.
I think there is another perspective. Business works
So they cannot protect security because they need it. Obviously, in security, but mostly they care about the product and the money, the business. So again, including the right people matters. What is the, I mean, business comes first, then the security. So we have to take the initiative instead of then taking the initiative of including them.
Yes. Around that, the problem is that
Only for the security matters more than them implementing the search.
Before this becomes a ranting session, I thought I would like to remind everybody that the title of the panel is a CXO panel. Okay. And the reason why I thought I would like to remind everybody this is because I think what we are talking about is in effect a political problem. And I talk about it from an office for a corporate political perspective, right? When we talk about getting buy-in from people, what do we do for people to buy into our idea? They want to know what's in it for them. So imagine, as a security guy, I go preach security to my business champion. If my security campaign or my security pitch doesn't make it his or her interest to support me, why would I get the support? The answer is quite simple. That guy won't support me. That guy will say I'm giving him problem. So in this case, right, since it's a CXO panel after all, I thought what I'm going to say is going to be quite controversial, but I think it's important for security people, and especially because cybersecurity is so transversal, to spend some time to understand the business. And when we talk about understanding the business, different businesses have different concerns. So here, for example, we have a panel here and we come from different backgrounds, right? Clearly, a data-driven guy versus a process-driven guy. The business considerations are very different. So you need to speak in the language that your other stakeholders must understand. Like, for example, we talk about automotive security. What do people care about? Is it only about money? I care if somebody dies, people's lives, and it gets reported in the news tomorrow. Now that's going to be a problem. So that is one way you can say, do you want to appear on the news tomorrow? You probably don't, right? You probably want to appear on the news for good reason, not because your algorithm was badly secured, and because your algorithm was horrible, somebody managed to take remote control of it and triggered a certain clause, a certain part of code that managed to get this car to drive into someone else. So now, think about it from that perspective and use what the business cares about to then say, look, security is coming in to help you not appear on the newspaper tomorrow. Right? But of course, the language of this is different compared to, for an automotive business compared to, say, a bank. Where for a bank, I probably deal with the auditors way more often. And so my number one problem is actually the regulatory authority.
Yes.
Right? And of course, the different business verticals you can think of, you will need to evaluate who your stakeholders are and what their number one pain point is and how, from a security perspective, you're able to give the value add. I thought it is important I clarify this before we start ranting about every other person under the sun besides security folks. Any other questions?
Well, I'm never this good.
I have one. So
I have a couple of perspectives to put forward here. The first thing is the code maturity. The individuals who are writing this code. Now, consider the people who have started writing code in C language, where creating a memory, if they have done someplace, then it is their prerogative to get rid of it. Say malloc versus as tree. Now the languages evolved, the 4J languages came in, the GC kicked in, and now that aspect has completely lost. So people don't care about what memory they are allocating because GC is going to kick in sunlight and it is going to take care of it. That is one part. So these practices are a very simple practice, but the security practice has to be built in the idiosyncrasy as a part of the idiosyncrasies. Yeah. Secondly, the tools that we are using, we have to be very apprehensive of using those tools because those tools can also introduce vulnerabilities and the backdoors. So for instance, if I'm asked to install some package which is going to help me in writing code, my first question is how secure that code of the plugin is. And if it hasn't been tested well, if it hasn't been trusted well, then I should ask these questions to those who are asking me to use it. In initial days, when we used to import some libraries, .sos, our security team used to literally autopsify it to identify if the library has any security holes in it. And if they approve it, then only we used to use it. So these practices, now the time has literally called again, because now we need things to happen in sprint moments. We don't have time to validate the plugins that we're installing and validate the .sos or the libraries that we're using. But the point is the practices, the programming practices that we have to inculcate in ourselves. We are missing that point somewhere, someplace with the advent of this ChatGPT and Gemini and what all. People are just prompting them and that is spitting some code, and then we are copy and pasting them in the applications. We have no time to pay it to what that code is doing, and when it bombards in the production, then we come to understand that yes, it was a perfect language. So these practices have to be inculcated. I mean, it has to be part of the maybe an educational process.
So, great point. And I think this, I can say, tends us to open another can of worms as bombs.
Thank you, Sansa.
You got it. Right. So now I think what you said is all about, I don't think here in this room or anywhere you know of, anybody who's not using anything which is developed by somebody else, be it proprietary or open source. Everybody is using good mix of everything. Maybe sake of convenience, sake for ease, maybe quick solution is already some libraries giving you out of the box solution. But what you said, it can come with its own caveats, and that caveats could be the security vulnerabilities. Many of the times you as in that library would already be publishing the known vulnerabilities that have been fixed, vulnerabilities which are still open, but still business takes the precedence. Okay, my need, I'll not say business, my need will take the precedence. I will ignore everything. I'll just use it. And eventually later in the process, when it goes to the user, it just, blows off. So I think what I have seen is many times people want to do things, but I've seen two challenges with them. A, they don't have time. B, they don't have, enough intent to put in effort for it. Like if I want to do something in my initial stages of secure SDLC, if I'm able to just say somebody, hey, please look into this, I would be putting in effort this much. Okay, you take care of it. It is your responsibility. Versus if I say, hey, this was the data flow diagram, and I think these are the key risks that I foresee. What do you think? Take a review and give me the report. I think that makes a big shift.
So, so for me, basically we just talked about AI and how we are using it through ChatGPT or Cursor, whatever we use. So now the biggest challenge which I see, which we are not which is not that much talked about, is the way we give the code to ChatGPT as a text prompt. Yeah. Yes. So basically we will give characters, we will give API keys, maybe some text, just to give the ChatGPT the text that why the hell I'm getting the error. So how to make sure that is also not, that is taken care of. Like we talk about PPT, but including these small things, how can we make sure that we can have a checklist of what is the best way out of this?
For the yes. I'll take this here. So if you want to include your ML part for coding,
I would say include everything. From threat modeling, use the BERT models. For static analysis, use the CNN models. For the plugin like copilots, use the Gauss models or K models. And when again there is always a risk of getting the finding out a vulnerability, use autoencoders. So autoencoders will find out what a slightest possibility of going wrong. So it must be a combo. It should not be just a piece of a code that is I'm using in the whole framework or whole 10,000 lines of a code. If you're using just a module that is being coded by ChatGPT, then that becomes vulnerable, right? So it should be the whole framework. Otherwise, no.
I thought in the of time, right? We can only entertain one last question. Otherwise, I think all of you are not going to make it to the networking party. I was surprised that nobody said we are running out of time, because I thought we were the guys holding you guys back from like drinks and merry and whatnot. But yeah, could we just take the questions and then we will sum up.
So recently we talked about this plugin adoption, right? That's 5%, 10%, whatever. So I worked on a project and almost did the integration of 50 plus developers. Now, it took almost like 6 months to integrate this all things to entire things. But the main question is like they are integrated, everything, but they are not scanning that much. So every like sprint, I assigned at the time that every 15 days or every week, you need to scan your entire project. So we based on like full scan or incremental scan, it doesn't matter if it's scanning, it is your file or not. But there, I'm not getting any sort of results for the developer. But now we have, as we are moving, so much the question. Yeah, so they are not ready for this plugin integration, and we are talking about the threat modeling. So they are not adopting the plugin itself. How I can prepare them for the threat modeling, because that is our next phase as a safe left approach.
Okay. Is your question related? Or is it a question?
I was related to marriage one.
Okay. Maybe we let you have a chance to once, then we try to answer that question, and then we will example any remarks. So,
Yeah, correct. So, like, his question was how we can protect the keys pasting into the ChatGPT or AI or OpenAI. So, I think there are solutions also, like you mentioned, to be very careful, still in auto encoder or those part. Like endpoint security, DLP solutions also we should use around that one. We should use the regex part. Okay, some patterns is matching, so it will block me that then and there to put an enter, push the code into the open platforms like that. Obviously, agentic AI cursors are, so we are all by default giving permissions to those people. So, okay, you scan my complete repository. So we did one more solution around agentic AI also. We created a PID because this cursor cloud supports the roles also. So what we did, like a very basic framework, a text written rule like OAuth top 10, like we gave the rule itself. Whenever you generate a code, keep mind of
question or is this a comment?
comment.
Comment on comment. Okay, then be short.
Yeah. So like
Yeah, so we can actually answer this question.
Yeah.
Yeah. So keep it short. Yeah, just
So if you give it a rule to the cursor MCP or anything, like these are the top 10 OAuth model, you should keep mind before you generate a code. So this is a one approach we are going towards.
Thank you.
Sorry, you were sharing.
Please, Sanjay, will answer your question.
I guess the code is pay back. That's the thing I'm had for the last 15 years, and still I'm moving on with that.
So that's what I said, like one is adoption rate, the other is the enforcement, right? So the person has already installed it, but he is not scanning it. How do you do that? You just cut the cable, right?
Yes.
And so that's the enforcement that should come from the top management, that this is the happening. So have a dashboard. I hope like you might be generating a dashboard for weekly or monthly to the management side where you are showing that this many the secrets were scanned and these were not scanned. We found it, although this ID was already there with them. So it would have been by the developer side and it should not have been in the repo, right? So the moment you will see all these things, the adoption rate is still low, but it will come down, right? So the only thing that you can do is, if you don't have the technology dashboard, you can create it, or now ChatGPT in a single day, you can have the front end, put the data from the back from the Excel sheet. In next 2 days, just show it to your management team. This is what they're doing from last 6 months. This is what we are doing. So reduction rate is not coming down from 8% to 80%. What else we can do? So right, it's a support and ask that you can ask. As someone was telling, proactively you have to go ahead, right? It's not always the product team has to involve you for when the design phase is there. Rather, you also have to go there and ask them, right? So this is, currently we are doing that, and almost I can say that this is what working somehow. It's not a foolproof thing, but it's still working.
Right.
Yeah.
I thought it would be good to use this opportunity to conclude the panel, right? And I think it's quite clear from today's discussion that there is no model answer to our problem statement. But that is life in security, right? So what I hope is the main takeaway today, if anything, is that we hope that what we have shared today gives you questions to ask yourself, what you think, ask people around you, and to kickstart conversations around many of these activities. Because as I mentioned just now, actually, when we do CXO panels like these, the target audience sometimes doesn't show up. The intended target audience is usually the people who should care about cyber but don't know they should care about it. So I would hope and I would like to get everyone to help us all, maybe help yourself too, to spread the word, to talk about why security is important, why it actually matters to non-security people. And I think that's probably the best service you can do for the panel today. And with that, I will use that as a basis to round up. And thank you very much for staying way over time, right?